welcome to this week's edition of the Designer's Den. I have a very special guest, Steve Pankotai, and we are thrilled today to be presenting this show actually as part of Dungeon Con Online, brought to you by Goodman Games. It's a celebration of all things 5th edition, and if you've got some time and you want to play some games, it runs through tomorrow, so you can go into the site and snag yourself a seat at the table when you're not watching people on Twitch. That is. All right. So Steve has done, gosh, you've done a lot of things. So I know, I'm going to let you give a little introduction of yourself then. Yes. Yeah, you have 37 titles currently on the Dungeon Masters Guild, which is kind of impressive because his first title was published in December of 2019. So, Steve has taken the pandemic to be productive, unlike some of us. Mhm. You you fell into the gaming community and you just found yourself sucked into projects. It's odd how often that happens. Um, so, I want to talk to start about a recent project that you did. The chat is saying you have no audio. 1 second. Why is the chat saying that? All right. Okay, try it again.
Hello? Can everybody hear me now?
Okay, I apologize for that, everyone.
Okay.
Zoom and I today are not having. We're not. We're just not. But anyways, so really all Steve had done was just tell you the names of all of the products that he's worked on, and we're gonna probably go through that again, so you didn't miss much. You got to look at them. But we're gonna talk about the Glitter Grimoire, a recent project that you did, that really just kind of takes me back to the days of my childhood. It is Lisa Frank goodness on the cover, but
Yes.
inside it is full of amazing spells. Yes.
Show chat the glitter grimoire. There we go. Pose it in the frame. Look at that.
Yeah, so this project is full of, let's see, how many spells are actually in here? I don't know, I didn't count them.
It's a little ways over 100 spells and magic items. Combination of both.
Yeah. So it's 43 pages long, and it is definitely not what you'd call a serious project, but it is absolutely beautiful. And some of my favorite spells from it, for instance, was let's see, a cantrip, of course, called Pull My Finger. Because I'm at heart, I love dad jokes. So, it is kind of what you think. You enchant one of your fingers, and the first time during the duration that the finger is pulled, a remarkable noise of your choosing, it doesn't have to be a fart, foghorn, animal, Wilhelm scream, whatever you like, klaxon, is emitted audible to a distance of 60 feet. If you have no fingers, you can enchant another appendage. So, have no fear if you've lost if you've lost all your fingers, you can still ask someone to pull your finger. Um, what's your favorite spell from here, Steve? I know, asking you to choose your favorite child.
There's a lot in here because we worked hard to make it all worthwhile because it is not a serious book, but we took it seriously, you know. So everything in it is useful. But my personal favorite is I have two, but my number one favorite is called Terwilliger's Rake, and it's you make a rake appear in front of your enemies and it whaps them in the face. And mechanically that it stops movement. It's a reaction spell that can be upcast for different sizes of creatures. So it starts with medium or smaller, but then you can upcast it all the way to gargantuan if you use a high enough spell slot. And I have never stopped thinking about the idea of like Tiamat, like rampaging across the city when all of a sudden this gigantic rake just whoosh, epically whacks her in the face.
Yeah,
Uh,
it doesn't matter how big you are, you should always watch the ground for gardening implements.
mhm. And that's of course followed up by my second favorite, which is called Acme's Anvil, and that is straight out of Looney Tunes. And anvil falls out of the air,
Meep
smashes
meep
them on the head.
meep meep.
uh, it's a lot of there's a lot of cartoon inspired stuff in here.
Yes. My second one that I loved was a third level conjuration. Sorcerers are wizards, so my sorcerer is of course gonna have it because this is chaos incarnate. It is called Squirrel Ball. It's what you think it is. A chittering globe of squirrels leaps from your pointing finger and blossoms into an overwhelming just tide of arboreal rodents. And everyone in a 20-foot radius sphere from where you pointed has to make a dex save or become swarmed by these squirrels who will crawl up your pant legs, tangle in your hair, and just make a complete nuisance out of themselves. It also gives the creatures swarmed uh, disadvantage and they are slowed. So not only is it full of my favorite things, woodland creatures, um, but also you really get to hamper your enemies.
Mhm.
It really gives some, to the old, oh, squirrel!
That was one of the strangest ones that I had submitted to this project, and it caught me so strongly that I can't not put that in. Like, picture
No.
this ball of squirrels just swarming your enemies. That's so bizarre.
Yeah. So kind of taking a step back, obviously this is a fun product. It's very comedic. What inspired you to make this product? It's a big collaboration, so it was a lot of work.
Yes, there's 25 people on this project, including me, and that was very difficult to manage. But the inspiration came from Critical Role. There's the character of Jester, played by
Yes.
Laura Bailey on Critical Role, who, if you're not familiar, uses her incredible divine powers for pranks constantly, and it had this beautiful energy of never being malicious, like punishing the people who deserve it, but never just going out of the way to hurt people. And that was kind of the guiding inspiration of like it just kind of formed in the back of my head, like what if Jester was the most powerful spellcaster of all time? Like where would
Yeah.
she write her spells down? And it was this, like, a Lisa Frank, like, full of doodles notebook. And it grew from there.
So, a little bit more flavor to the item. Not only does it look like a Lisa Frank notebook, but it's got a bunch of design in it. Tells you it's top secret property of Candlekeep. It's a very dangerous grimoire, not to be removed from the library, and it has notes from the various librarian researchers throughout it, a memorandum on usage, and it's just so much like obvious love went into the layout and design on this to make it seem like, I don't know, like this thing that
Yeah.
you're really finding at Candlekeep, and you're like, what's this sparkly thing?
And
Behold.
that was all Chris Hopper is our layout artist on this, and I we were talking. I had the idea. This is the Notebook. It's full of all these crazy things, and he just ran with it. Like it's a bunch of stock art stuff, some stuff he made, stuff that he found crazy places, and he just filled it with these doodles and images, and like every piece of the margin was just filled up by him, and he nailed it. Like everything, he would send me updates, and I was like, "It's amazing. I love it. You have some more money."
Yeah. It, a lot of the doodles are definitely much higher quality than anything I was doodling. Aside from the cool S, um, which is, if everyone remembers, you draw the 6 lines and you connect them.
The
Yeah,
cool S, yes.
it was a thing. Why was it a thing?
No one knows.
I don't. You know, it remains a mystery, but it was a thing. Um, if you're not old enough to remember that, then I'm very sorry that you missed out on that time in life. The last page of this book also has another kind of throwback to that same era. It has a page that you can pull out and make yourself a cootie catcher. You wanna show it?
Yeah. I don't actually have my actual folded one anymore, but I
Oh
do
no.
have it. It's here in the back of the book. It looks kind of crazy, but we have instructions. You like cut it out of the book and you fold it, and then you make one of the little cootie catchers. It kind of opens and folds and tells your fortune. And there's fun little fortunes in there for your physical copy, and then there's also like the magical item in the book version of it, so your character can have one too. That lets them cast divination once a week.
Yeah, divination, of course, because in middle school, high school, it told you who you were gonna marry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very powerful magic item, and that was also the brainchild of Chris Hopper, where we had a spare page at the end of the book, and I was trying to figure out how to fill it, and he just
Let's put a cootie.
just
Yeah.
came up with that, and I thought that was the most brilliant addition to the book. So
I
thank
mean,
you, Chris.
yes, I also I absolutely adore it. So aside from the glitter grimoire, though, as stated, you've got 37 things already out there, and that's just on the DM's Guild. So you started with an adventure,
Did.
The Price of Freedom, which was a little dark, a little,
Yeah.
could be. And then you dropped a whole slew of things for classes, fortunes favored. So you kind of you've done a little bit of everything. I would say that you do adventures the most. Because like you said, you've got the Wizard's Assistant, you've got the Knight of Fright, which is this Scooby Doo kind of parody. Artwork on that was phenomenal too, by the way. So kudos to that artist.
Yep, amazing.
Oh, was that Sadie?
Yep. She
Oh,
was the editor and the artist. Absolutely indispensable
I
to the
love I
Fight
love
series.
Sadie. I love Sadie so
Yes,
much.
everyone loves Sadie.
Yes. So I mean, obviously some of these you're drawing inspiration from, you know, media. Um, Scooby Doo, Lisa Frank, Jester. Is that where you draw the most of your influence primarily?
Probably. It's I have a great love for things, and just being able to do those sort of homages is a lot of fun
Mm-hmm.
for me. Like even in like I did the Supers and Sorcery Kickstarter a while back, and that obviously has a lot of superhero stuff in it, which is
Yes.
another big love of mine, and that's just pumped full of Easter eggs and homages and everything that we can think of.
In a
And
superhero setting though, like you kind of expect you want a little bit of fan service there.
yeah,
Like
100%.
give me something that shows you read the comics.
Yeah, and that's like I like taking not serious things seriously.
Hmm.
Um, so like the Night of Fright stuff is a goofy, campy Scooby Doo parody, but it's also a love letter to those things, and it's also a serious attempt to say what would that look like in this world. What could drive these people and keep these things going while maintaining the sort of like tongue in cheek, like poking fun at it. Um, like I do a lot of homage things, but
Hmm.
I think they all come from a place of reverence.
Yeah, yeah, reverence rather than taking something and punching down,
Mm,
because that's not nearly as fun.
no.
Then you have another kind of series that you've gotten that this just kind of really tickled me. It's the Fight Your Minis series. And the blurb on your website says it targets customers who bought a miniature that they're not sure how to use.
Hmm.
So,
And that was the brainchild of the Gallant Goblin, who approached me to collaborate on this. And they have a YouTube channel where they review, a bunch of
yes.
minis primarily. And they're great people to work with. I've really enjoyed them. We do have the next entry in that series is in layout presently, and it's coming out soon. So they had the idea, and I thought that was a brilliant idea because you can buy blind boxes. It's just a box with a mini. Who knows what you're going to get? And you might end up with
You can't buy just one.
something.
You can't
Yeah.
buy just one.
And then it's like, what do you do with these now that you have them? It's just you have these random minis.
You put them on
So
a shelf and you tell yourself you're gonna use them one day.
I have a whole shelf right back there that's full of those ones I will hopefully use one day. But
Mine are in a box somewhere. I'm in the process of moving, but I'm totally gonna use all my minis one day.
obviously, but yeah, the first one we did was the snowy owl bear, and that was entirely because snowy owl bears are cute and fun.
I
But it's a fun series.
I do have a collection of the adorable like baby owlbear
Mhm.
miniatures. Um, this is even worse because we 3D printed them, and I'm totally gonna use them.
But that was a great book because it's full of like expanded lore and variant stats and loot for the monster, as well as like encounters and adventure hooks. And that was really fun to be able to like expand on what's given, because like a snowy owl bear is just an owl bear except it's white, really.
Yeah,
And like it's in rhyme of the Frost Maiden, but it's not really given anything extra. So
well, not the ones in the book. If you've been playing through any of the Adventurers League campaign that accompanies it, there's a snowy owlbear in that Frostclaw who has a lot of personality and um, well, she kills everyone that you love at the
oh.
beginning because you encounter her as a lowly level 1 to begin with.
Well, that sounds terrible. I made an owl bear in the circus that you can adopt.
But you get your redemption arc eventually. You get your redemption arc eventually. Um, she helps out with the introduction to sidekicks though. You get your sidekicks in the adventure and then you get to watch Frostclaw kill them all.
Oh, that's terrible. All right, I take back my happy sound there.
But it introduces you to a lot of the lore too. So, while it's a terrifying and ferocious owlbear and you should rightfully be afraid of him at level 1,
Mhm.
you also get to learn all the stuff about, what is Chardalyn, and how that kind of even affects owlbears because that's actually why she's so vicious,
Oh,
you
well,
know.
that's a nice addition. Then I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because as everyone knows, owlbears aren't vicious, they're
Yeah.
cuddly.
We do have in the Fight Your Minis book, they let me run pretty wild with art requests, and we did another homage to the classic Coca-Cola bears. Uh,
Yes.
in there where we have the little family of snowy owl bears and the nice Icewind Dale Aurora. It's very
And
beautiful.
and you've even got the rules for taming and keeping a snowy owlbear as a pet.
Yep.
Right down to your certificate of ownership, which you might think that you own the owlbear, but much like a cat, who
Yeah. No, that I agree. That came from my wife actually, where I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna be working on a book about snowy owlbears," and she like kicked the door down, like, "Let me own one. I want a pet." She like saw the mini, and the mini's adorable of it just like sitting there on its haunches. She was like, "That I'm gonna get that, and it's gonna be my best friend." And I was like, "Okay, dear, yes, I will. I will make rules for your best friend, the owlbear."
Yes. So your wife is obviously hashtag Team Owlbear.
Yes, no, she
So
loves owlbears.
yes, a great fondness for owlbears myself, and Laura Hurst
Mhm.
Werner. Yeah. So aside from the kind of tongue-in-cheek stuff and the fight your mini stuff that you've done a lot of player primers,
Yes.
so narrative work.
Mhm.
um so do you just like have this backlog of lore in your head that you needed to get out, or what made you choose the locations that you've got so far? So you've got
That's how it started. Because yes, I started with Icewind Dale, and
mhm,
then I moved to the Southern Sword Coast, and it started out of the desire to cash in and sell out, because they announced Rime of the Frost Maiden last June, I think, um, and I started thinking like, what could I do that could tie into that, and they in the Guide to Wildmount created the Heroic
yes.
Chronicle system, and I love the Heroic Chronicle system. I thought that was amazing, and they haven't done too much with it.
Hmm.
D&D Beyond's expanded it slightly, but it occurred to me that what if more places had this? So I kind of set about making a heroic chronicle for Icewind Dale, helping characters feel like they're tied into Icewind Dale to help you make characters for Rime of the Frost Maiden. And it occurred to me like, oh, to have that, you need to know the area also. So I started. I actually called up Sadie Lowry, who at the time I had a whole string of collaborations with her because she's fantastic to work with, who also wanted to work on an Icewind Dale project. And I was like,
Yes.
this one I think is going to be short and quick. I think you and I can do it. And in 10 to 14 days, the two of us wrote, edited, laid out, and released that whole thing.
Whoop,
Um, yeah, which
whoop.
which was great. And then it honestly was about a month before I realized, like, oh wait, I could keep doing
Yeah. I
that.
mean, you can. That's the beauty of it. The Forgotten Realms have so many regions, that you can honestly just, you know, and
Mhm.
after you run out of regions, you can just start making them up because nobody knows what they all are.
Once I started working on it, and I like sat down, I was like, oh, what should I do? Where should I go? And I realized it's literally so dense and large, the Forgotten Realms, and I could do this for years
Mhm.
before I run out of areas. But I think I was talking to Brian Holmes about it, and some of the other like real realms lore
Yes.
fans in the community. And I think it was Brian who pointed out that some of that like Southern Sword Coast doesn't get a lot of love. It's been in a lot of the Sword Coast stuff, and it's had like novels and like all these things, but it just hasn't really been touched in a while.
Mhm.
So at their suggestion, I moved into the Southern Sword Coast, and we've released primers for Tether, Calimshan, and the Moonshae Isles, which is the whole kind of Southern Sword Coast region.
Well, the Moonshae Isles has a whole regional guide,
Mhm.
because that is where Baldman Games has set their content. There was CCC, and now it's the Masters campaign going
Mhm.
forward. But there's, I mean, even with everything they've released, there's still so much
Yeah.
lore in the Moonshae Isles. It is dense.
And that was surprising to me because I didn't know much about the Moonshae Isles. And the one of the fun parts about the player primers is it's very collaborative.
Mhm.
So I've written half of them, and I've overseen and helped work on and research the rest of them. Um, but the like Moonshae Isles was written by Brian Holmes and Michaela Abel, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, I'm sorry, who was one of the co-writers on Rime of the Frostmaiden. They came on and helped me work on that, and I just remember like we started like digging into the Isles, and I was like, wow, what? Like I would read all the stuff that was written, like the typed up lore that was being submitted, and I was like, I have no idea what this is saying. This is confusing. We had to like parse it down and figure out how to make it bite sized because it was hard.
I have recently gotten a crash course in Moonshae Isles lore from Eric Mingy. Um, and he has been overseeing the entire the first storyline for Baldman Games, so 20 trilogies approximately. And we've talked now for, I did an hour for one of the Baldman Game shows, and then I had him on the D&D Roundtable, and then I talked to him some more just offline. So I've gotten like 3 hours of Moonshae's lore, and I'm just like, is that it? He's like, no, I barely started.
And that's the aim with the player primers has always been like base level.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea, like, because it's both DM and player facing. So the idea is you can hand this book to your player and they can read it. It's just a couple of pages and you get the basic overview of who's here, what they're doing, and what the basic story is so far.
Yeah. So you've got the basic I wanted to say tribes, but they're not really tribes. The different people,
Action.
who reside there in the Isles, and
Mhm.
then the varying religions that they follow, because they're not all really aligned with the typical pantheon. And the fact that the Feywild in the Isles really just kind of,
Yeah.
it's a really blurry boundary.
Yeah. And the fun thing is then we started doing player primer adventures, and
Yes.
these are entirely made by other people. I haven't written any of these, but I've overseen and helped steer a lot of them. Where a writer comes in and makes an adventure that introduces you to some of these themes or some of these factions, and helps you bring a level 1 character into this setting, and it's so exciting to me. I love those, and some of those have had quite a lot of success. I'm really happy with how those have been received.
Yeah, those have been great, and I think it's always a good idea to kind of start with like some low level content because, um, contrary to what people who've been playing D&D for a long time like to think, the majority of players to D&D nowadays are new.
Mhm.
They've only come into it in the past year or so, maybe 2 years. The hobby has seen phenomenal growth, and like that is the market right now. That like, yeah, and you've obviously you've recognized that. You've put some
Mhm.
thought into it. You're like, what can I do to help these people feel like they're not 40 years behind?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because and that all spun out of Icewind Dale. Because I love Icewind Dale. I've read like all the R.A. Salvatore novels and like all these like everything.
I
I just have absorbed it. So when I did most of the first one, most of that just poured out of my head. Where I was like, I know all these things. Let me just fill this up. But like to jump into rhyme is hard,
Yes.
especially because it's all in like the DM book. It's hard to hand the whole adventure module to players and let them figure it out. So being able to just give them like 4 pages of like, here's the basic overview, everything you need to know to jump into this.
There's something about each of the 10 towns.
Yeah.
I think having the little sections that kind of describe each of the towns was like super helpful. I did a bit of a crash course in Icewind Dale as well.
Mhm.
I got tagged in to write one of the epics for the season,
Right.
and was like, time for book club for my co-writer. I was like, so we're gonna read the Crystal Shard trilogy,
Mhm.
and I happened to have the Crystal Shard from the D&D Next playtest available to me. I don't own it, but my partner Alan Patrick does. So he owns everything pretty much.
Mhm.
But so Connor ordered that, and so the two of us were like, okay, how quickly can we read all of these books? And I was like, 2 days later, like, I've done. Have you finished them?
They're easy. They're relatively easy reads.
Yeah.
And the that D&D Next book is actually very good. Because I used a lot of that for sourcing my research as well, and I was very
It is
impressed.
very hard to get for a
It
reasonable
was,
price.
yes.
Um, just if you want a physical copy of it.
I was,
If you want to just read it, you can get it on I believe the DM's Guild has the PDF
mm,
of it.
yeah, it does, and that's where I ended up getting it. But it was, I was just terrified of getting it raw. you know, and that's a lot of this in the player primers, digging through a lot of the lore has been very complicated because a lot of
Hmm.
these wikis are outdated or not kept up, or it was one line written in one book in like 1999 where I mean that's canon, like I need to know about that, but I got to find that.
You don't have all of the books memorized, and you can't
No.
just turn around to your shelf and be like, "Oh, it's in this one."
Only for Icewind Dale, not for anywhere else.
I can't do that either. Um, that's why, again, fortunate to have the resources that I have available to me because I'll be working on a project. I'll be like, I need to know
Mhm.
about. Mm, I don't know. Where am I gonna set this? And then just like, and then you like rattle off a place. Oh, there's a lot of lore in these 5 books.
And I've learned a lot about the Forgotten Realms in working on these. There's a lot that I didn't know. Like I'd never heard of Tether. And as soon as I started digging into the lore for that to make the player primer, I was like, this place is dope. It's got a ton of history. There's a ton of story and adventure hooks just hanging there. And that's been the case for every region that I've written about.
I really dug into Termish for one of my
Mhm.
projects and was like, this place is great. And then I'm like, well, maybe I should do like Chasenta. Maybe we need to go the rest of the way around the Sea of Fallen Stars. Like nobody's gone inland.
Right. Uh,
Uh,
and that's why I started with the Southern Sword Coast, because there's a lot of things about Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate and all these things, and I wanted to get a little bit deeper, but not too obscure, you know.
and I think
Uh,
and all of that. That's really good content because I know at least was in 4th edition. I'm
I think so. I know
que-
it was in the
questioning
video.
everything that I just said.
Yeah.
Now. I'm pretty sure we did a campaign in 4th edition that was set in uh whether or not that was in the books, I don't know. But so that's been fairly recently. It was very popular and just kind of go on down the Sword Coast there
Mhm.
until you find Schult again.
Yeah. And yeah. uh, and there's a lot of just very outdated stuff in all these areas. Just it hasn't been touched. The world is literally too big to touch on all of this. So the player primers gives us a little bit of opportunity to shake off some of the dust and clear off some of the, like, if there's any particularly problematic bits, and kind of
Yes.
update some things, and give it a little bit of new life breathed into it, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look forward to seeing the rest of the player primers that you're gonna do.
We took a little hiatus after we finished the Lands of Intrigue, which is that Southern Sword Coast area, because we were doing one every other month, each with a different like creative team, more or less, with the primer and the adventure being bundled together, and that's
A
a lot.
lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah. For,
Uh,
for anyone who's new to design, don't think that you need to do that much. Steve's an overachiever.
I am. And it was intentionally built. I was trying to work with new people and kind of give newer creators a chance to
Hmm.
work on some stuff and that sort of thing.
And
And I think it was very successful in that. But it was difficult.
yes, project managing can be. I
Mhm.
last thing I project managed was the encounters in the far north for the guild adepts, and like they're all obviously accomplished. They were all accomplished
Mhm.
authors, and I was still like, this is hard.
I remember it was the Moonshay Isles, and we were working with Michaela as the writer. who right during that time got caught up in some of the wildfires last year,
Oh yeah.
like moving
Aust-
and doing all this stuff. And I was like, take all the, yeah, go deal with that. That is a serious thing. This can absolutely wait. And that immediately, like, we realized, oh, our timelines are too fast. Let's slow everything down, make sure people have time to live their lives and deal with emergencies like that. And that came up immediately. That was like a very fast problem that we had.
you
But
gotta, consider that creators are people with
mhm,
lives, and most of us aren't doing this full time.
mhm.
I know, um, I don't do gaming stuff full time. I have a muggle job,
It's a Michael job, yes.
and I add on to on top of that, like all of the Twitch, the conventions, the game design, and all of that, and it gets to be a lot. And um, I mean, and you do video work as
I
well,
do. Yep,
so
I'm a full-time video editor. That's my muggle job. So this is just my free time stuff. But I've also, I've got a family.
mhm.
Like I've got a little baby, so
Oh
it's
yeah,
it's hard to keep this stuff up.
family. I too have one of those.
Hmm.
I don't have uh I don't have a child, um, but there is a child present in the house. So
Where did it come from? I don't know. uh,
it came from someone who wasn't me.
uh,
But yeah, devoting time to family is important to keep that work life balance.
mm,
So like how did you manage to do that with the
oh,
schedule you were keeping?
I just burned myself out. That's all, nice and easy.
Did you sleep?
Yeah. Um, I'm personally good at multitasking. I always have been, and I think you have to be. So, like I've been working from home during the pandemic, um, which makes it easier to like respond to Discord messages for things coming in. So
I
like I'll
don't
be working, but then in a down moment from my work, instead of turning around to chat with my coworkers or something who aren't here, I would respond to Discord messages and keep projects moving.
Mhm.
Um,
And I think that's what a lot of us have kind of pivoted to during this pandemic, and with just like the whole change now. A lot of people who were working in offices, they're not anymore. Like it's just not going back to the office. Um, I know I'm fully remote now, so is my partner. Um, uh, and our office mate is a cranky dog, um, who is thankfully taking a nap right now. He's an old man. He's 13.
oh,
Um, but yeah, exactly. So that's kind of the only thing that's really allowed me to keep any semblance of work-life balance is that um, I can work while I'm working,
yeah,
and I can also do school while I'm working on work at work.
yeah, and it's hard to spin all those plates, and I know a lot of tabletop designers who have appeared to be very productive over these last few months, who have put out some really remarkable works,
Hmm.
who are now taking steps to not do that anymore because they burned out really hard.
It,
Uh,
it is easy to do. Especially when you just get so caught up in like there's so many people to work with. I want to work on all these collaborative projects. Collaborative projects are exhausting. They're so fulfilling in the end. But there's a lot more emotional labor.
yeah,
And that is it's just mentally tiring. No matter it doesn't matter how you slice it.
yeah,
Like having to juggle everyone's schedule, all the deadlines, um, make sure that you keep if someone's got this personal issue going on, you got to remember that in the back of your mind so that you don't say anything.
and that was like my last two big projects were the Glitter Grimoire and Diesel, and the Glitter Grimoire was 25 people, where there wasn't there too much of like being tight and being friends, because some people only submitted like one thing, some people submitted
Hmm.
like 10 things, whatever. But it was a lot of just organization. Make sure I have everyone's name, write down what they did, how much money I owe them, all these things. Like I needed to
What
dot
what
all those
time
I's.
zone do you live in so I know when to contact you?
Right. Like there was a lot of complexity just in that organization. To juggle all that sucked. But then on the other hand, Diesel was a small team, but
Hmm.
then it was that much more personal thing, and all through the lens of Kickstarter, where it's like, I sure hope I get the money on this so that I can pay these people who now I know and love and who worked so hard for and with me.
Yes.
uh, it's exhausting, and I was doing both of those at the same time, which was a mistake.
Well, I mean, you had a good team also on Diesel. Granted, by you're not the first person on my show to talk about Diesel. I actually had Matthew Whitby on, and that was the big thing he wanted to talk about for the first segment.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did I back that one? I don't even know what I've kickstarted this year anymore.
I don't remember seeing your name on the list, but
I don't know if I don't think that I
I'm not
did.
sure.
I don't think
I
that I
wouldn't
did.
hold it against you. It's perfectly fine.
No, it's just like I'm trying to figure out where I'm gonna put all of these games that I've ordered.
Well, exactly, and that was a lot of my problem with Diesel. Is most of my bubble is other creators, and we're just there's obviously the jokes about passing around the same $5, but it's also passing around the same foot of shelf space that we're all just, oh, you buy this, I'll trade you this, so we all just passing each other books around.
I I had finally put some shelving into my office in my condo in Chicago, um, just in time for me to decide that I'm gonna rent out my condo.
Well, you can
So
leave your books there and give the renters something fun to do.
leave my gaming books.
Like you don't have more, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, true, and that is part of the problem is that I have so many. But you've got to have them on hand so you can surround yourself with books so that you can be in your swivel chair doing your research.
Mhm.
Um,
Yep,
which,
I've got mine right there on my
yeah,
shelf.
I got a 5 feet of table for my desk, and my latest thing that I've brought back from Chicago, I'm process of moving, is my little it's like a C-shaped TV tray, but it's like 2 feet
Okay.
wide. Oh, it's my favorite side table. I'm gonna set it here right by my desk, and then I can have like a full circle because I've got the arm of the sofa behind me, and this is the secret to
Yeah,
how you do more design work. You literally surround yourself with books so you can't go anywhere.
it is amazingly useful, both in terms of the text and in terms of trapping yourself. Yes.
Also, really helpful when you have multiple copies of the same book. I had, I have, have had, we had like 6 copies of Icewind Dale, Frost Maiden. So I had it open to like 4 different pages, just like I need these 4 things, and I have another one that I'm flipping through.
That may be too much. I know I've done that. I've done that with like the monster manual. I have like 2 copies of that open, looking at different monsters for an encounter and things like that. But,
I only have one monster manual.
I think I have. I think I have 3 player handbooks here. I think that's the one that I have the most of.
Okay.
But
Okay, well, there are definitely at least 2 monster manuals in the house, and at least 4 player handbooks, um, and 7 sets of the essentials kit.
jeez. Well, you're very prepared for
Uh,
whatever
I am
apocalypse of lack of D&D
no,
happens.
I am super prepared with my essentials kit stash to just bestow upon someone. I've never played D&D and I want to run a campaign. Boom.
Yep,
Here you go. Well, how much?
that's
No, no,
fine.
no. Here you go. It's
Yeah,
yours.
the
Um,
essential kit's great for that. I love it.
I got them for $7 each.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's a fantastic deal and a fantastic idea.
Yeah. I think it was Target, and I just went in. I'm like, I'd like all these, thank you. I gotta be the benevolent fairy just handing out D&D to everyone.
Walking
You
down
get a
the street,
D&D and you get a
totally tossing them to random children. You there? What day is it? D&D day.
yeah. Um so do you have any upcoming projects that you can talk about?
Whew. Yes.
I know you have upcoming projects.
Yes. I took some time off after Diesel because Diesel is still in progress. So we did complete the Kickstarter for it, but now we're in layout stages. So that'll be coming out late summer ish. So that's the big one coming out. Then I am working on some stuff with some of my real life buddies for a nice change. Working on, we're not sure if it's going to be a Kickstarter or a DM's Guild project yet, but we're working on it's like a new faction that comes with like a fancy headquarters, and there's like subclasses and all the magic items. It's going to be
I love
a
factions.
pretty fancy book, and that one I'm pretty excited about. And I am just starting to crack open more player primers, figuring out where I want to go next, and starting to work heavily on those is next on my list.
Well, I'll vote for Termish. It's pretty close to where you already were, so just kind of.
I will think about it because
I'm sure you'll get there
I
eventually.
I do wanna get into some of the more popular areas because I think they could use a thing like this. Like obviously Waterdeep is popular, but there's like Waterdeep Dragon Heist, that
Yeah.
could use a player primer for players. So there's stuff like that, but also digging into some of these wider and weirder areas of the Forgotten Realms.
Well, you can always go to um Halrua.
I don't even know where that is.
So if you're on the Chultan Peninsula
Okay.
and you come inland, it is like at the bottom of the desert area.
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not gonna go to the Chiltern Peninsula for a while at least.
I'm gonna well, I was trying to put it in perspective. Well, you've got a map of the Forgotten Realms. I'm not gonna link you a map.
Yeah,
You've got one.
somebody. I don't have it
I
in front.
have it bookmarked.
Oh, you'd think that I would after all this Forgotten Realms work, but you know what? I don't. I still pull it up on the wiki every time, like a person. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got a high def version of
Wow. All right. Where am I looking?
the very bottom.
Very bottom. Okay. That's really far away.
Like right in the middle, yeah.
Yep.
So Harua, and they have cool things like more steampunky, like
Oh, okay.
airships and whatnot. I remember I played an author only that Robert Aducci wrote in that area, and I got my staff of power, and I might have blew up an airship.
What else are airships for, if not combusting?
Well, if you don't want me to completely ruin your airship, maybe don't make the control chair out of wood when I have an axe from the Lost Mines of Phandelver that does maximum damage to any plant-based material.
It does seem foolhardy to build your command chair out of wood in the first place.
I split it right in twain.
I will say though that working on these player primers has, I think it's really given me great perspective for building like my own game stuff, because it's huge. This world is too huge. It's gigantic. But
You can take that up with Ed.
yeah, you know what, I will. Let's talk, Ed. I love Ed. He's a great.
Yeah, I was gonna say you joke, but Ed will totally talk with you about it.
I think he would. But like each of these little regions, like on this map, they look so itty bitty. They look minuscule, but each of these regions has such a dense lore to it. Like there's so many stories in this world, and it's so easy to think about just popping, run, we go from town to town, we travel and we get to this thing, then we get to this big city, then there's this big apocalypse over here. And like, it's so easy to focus on the big stuff. But like, if you take a minute to just step back and look at these like local things, there's so much fascinating stuff going on that it's working on these has changed the way I think about like world building.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and for anyone who's like American, like a lot of these regions are bigger than your typical state. And we're ignoring the Northeast in this equation. Those aren't normal sized states. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And yeah, cause like I know I'm looking at a random one here. Dambrith, which you also don't know of, it's on the very southern coast, is like 500 miles across.
Yes, and on my screen it's that big right now. Like that.
I could cover it up with my thumb.
Yeah, and to put that in context, that means that just this map is covering what, like 6,000 miles across. Like that's tremendous.
I believe it's more than, I don't know.
Might be that. Yeah, I'm just spitballing. That's
Yeah. Well, each little,
something like that.
yeah. I don't know. I'd have to do some math. No.
Yes. Let's take a minute. Let's get a ruler. And we'll calculate the square area of the Forgotten Realms.
We'll just ask it.
Yes.
What's the land mass approximately?
I'm sure. Honestly, I'm sure he's got it written down somewhere, but
Probably.
it keeps changing as parts of it disappear and reappear.
Well, if the people of the world would stop ruining it.
Don't put that on them. This is the adventurers. It's always the adventurers.
They're people of the world.
Yeah, but they're cruel people.
That is true. Okay, well, we are almost at our time. So, do you have any final thoughts or advice that you would want to give to anyone out there who's looking to get into content creation?
Yeah, I started with the RPG Writers Workshop, which is put on by the Storytelling Collective every year, twice a year. I think they've got another one coming up it might be in July. I know there's one in the fall.
It's soon.
But I think there's one starting in July. And that was a fantastic introduction to the community. It gave me the framework to start a thing and complete a thing. And that's what worked for me was just having it completed. Because my first adventure is not that great. It's not bad, but it's definitely, it's rough around the edges. It doesn't have beautiful layout. It doesn't have beautiful art. There's all these things, but I completed it and it sold not super well, but pretty well. Like it was featured in the newsletter, and that was fun. It felt really good. And that was just because I finished the thing, so that's what I think is most important, because even if it's not that great, even if it is rough around the edges like mine was, my whole first couple products are pretty rough, but I put them out, and they were fun. And then I failed. And like the Wizard's Apprentice has sold like 5 copies. Like it has not sold very well at all.
Not everything can be a hit.
No,
and that's an important part of learning.
Yes, I learned a lot from that, and I got to work with some great people on that. And in that time is when I started making contacts and talking to people, and then I started working with other people and doing things that made me happy, and they started selling really well. So find whatever is making you happy, and find other people with skills complementary to yours, because like the design team on Diesel are fantastic mechanical designers. I'm not a mechanical designer. I can handle narrative and lore, and I can conceptualize these numbers, but they had spreadsheets, they had numbers, and they just made things work the way they should in a game. And having those people with me was fantastic. So find whatever you like, whatever you're good at, and find people who complement those skills, work together, and grow together.
I think that is excellent advice, and you are correct. Write Your First Adventure returns in July. So I just dropped the link to the Storytelling Collective for anyone who's interested in checking that out. They are an excellent resource, started by Ashley Warren, and it has grown way beyond Ashley into an incredible group. I would highly recommend it. It wasn't a thing when I started, so I had to do it the tried and true method of make something that's real terrible, crappy, and then make something else. Which that is also a valid way. You know, if you've got an idea, put it out there. And then see what works, what doesn't work, refine it, put a new idea out there. That's honestly that's the whole thing of it. And you know, my other advice to follow on to that would be to get involved in the community, because the best way to get advice, to get feedback, to get a little bit of hand holding is to just talk to other people. Hey, I've got an idea. I was thinking of doing this. Can I get your opinion on something real quick? The community is very friendly and very open to collaboration. A lot of people are open to collaborating with someone who's never written before. So you never know until you ask. So Steve, where can everyone find you online?
The best place to keep up on my new releases and things like that is my Twitter, at Stephen Pankotai, right there. There's also my website, stephenpankotai.com, which we've been quoting slightly here, which has links to more of my things. And yeah, I'm always around. Like, say hi.
He's always on Twitter.
I am.
That's the secret. I'm not. I've gotten better.
You're not missing anything.
I've gotten better about not being on Twitter so much. But yeah, you can check out Steve's work also on the DMs Guild. Check out Diesel. Kickstarter's finished, but you'll be able to pick up a copy still if you want.
Runsondiesel.com.
The branding for that could have been. It was a little. Diesel is a common word.
It is. It was remarkably hard to advertise. I could do a whole other segment on that. Yeah, that was a mistake. But it's a cool cover.
It is. It looks great. Great system. Unfortunate branding.
Yes.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter as well. Not as like omnipresent as Steve, but I do reply to things pretty quickly. You can also find me on my website, jennyloveday.com, and you can check out the Designer's Den, this show, every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, on my channel, twitch.tv, / Jenny Loveday. I also host a bunch of other D&D related shows on there. A lot of them to do with becoming a better DM, becoming a better whatever, and produce shows on my channel that other people host around other topics, such as Jeff Talks RPGs, where he talks to people about running a Kickstarter, or world building with Ed Greenwood, or collaborative projects, project management, variety of topics, all kinds of good and interesting stuff that, I don't know, people like to know, I guess. But with that, I have a pretty good lineup coming up for the next couple of weeks. I have closed my calendar, apparently. I apologize. I have Kat Evans, Latia Jaquise, Jess Penley, Chris Bissett, Stephen Garcia, And then I am still scheduling people out for July and August, but expecting to have a bunch more interesting people on there. So if you're interested in being on the show, you can shoot me an email, contact@jennyloveday.com. Other than that, thank you all so much for tuning in and hanging out with Steve and I. I hoped you uh, learned something new or just, you know, enjoyed the talk. But that is it for this episode of the Designer's Den. I believe they've got some more exciting content coming up next on the Goodman Games channel, so stay tuned. All right, thanks
Thanks a lot.
everyone.